A month after escaping the man who tried to destroy her, Lily finally found peace in a quiet coastal town. But what she didn't expect
How could you do
was
this
that the
to us?
Navy SEAL
Men
who saved
died
her
because
life
of you.
would return one last time.
It wasn't my
Not
choice.
to
Back
fight,
off.
not to rescue,
Where
but
do you
to give
think
her
you're
something
going?
even stronger than
You can't
protection.
just walk away
The
from
courage
this.
to start over. And on that golden evening by the sea,
go of
with
me,
Ranger
please.
circling her feet and Ethan preparing for another dangerous deployment, she discovered that miracles don't always come from heaven. Sometimes they arrive in the form of a soldier who refuses to walk away. If stories of courage, healing, and hope inspire you, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and share this video so more people can find the strength they've been searching for. Rain drifted down over Portland in thin silver sheets, soft enough to blur the city lights but cold enough to bite into the skin. The sky hung low and heavy, a solid gray mass pressing down on the rooftops and dampening the usual bustle of downtown. People hurried beneath umbrellas, splashing through shallow puddles as the sidewalks glistened like wet glass. Ethan Cole walked with the steady stride of a man who was always prepared for something to go wrong. Even off duty, even on mandatory leave, even in a place as harmless as a shopping district in the late afternoon rain, Ethan's posture reflected everything the Navy SEALs had carved into him. Vigilance, discipline, readiness. He was 34, tall, about 6'2", with the kind of frame that filled out a dark jacket without effort. His shoulders were broad, his chest defined beneath layers of fabric, and despite the rain, his gait remained balanced and purposeful. His hair was a deep brown, clipped short in military fashion, though longer now that he'd been off deployment for several weeks. His jaw was angular, sharp enough to look carved from stone, and bristled with a controlled amount of stubble. His skin carried the tan of someone who spent more of his life under foreign suns than domestic ones. His eyes, steel gray, steady and unblinking, moved like radar across the environment. It wasn't paranoia, it was training and memory. Memory of missions gone wrong, memory of brothers he could not bring home, memory of a civilian life that never quite fit him again. Beside him trotted Ranger, a 4-year-old Belgian Malinois with a muscular, compact body built for speed and force. His fur was a mix of sable and black, thickened against the damp. Ranger was not a pet. He was a soldier in his own right, a war dog trained to detect explosives, read human aggression, breach doors, and fight on command. His ears remained perked, swiveling at every sound: footsteps, car horns, conversations, distant alarms. Ranger walked half a step ahead, scanning. Ethan walked half a step behind, trusting him. Portland wasn't the battlefield, but the two moved like they were always one heartbeat away from it. Ethan had intended this outing to be simple: coffee, maybe a bookstore, quiet time to settle his mind. His commanding officer had insisted on leave, claiming Ethan needed distance after the last mission. Distance wasn't something Ethan ever managed well, especially when the world was too quiet. Rain gave him something to focus on. Ranger gave him something to protect. But fate had other plans. Ethan noticed her because Ranger noticed her first. The Malinois' body tensed, tail lowering, muscles shifting beneath his coat. Ethan followed the dog's gaze, scanning through the rain haze until he saw a woman standing near the entrance of a boutique, small-framed, trembling, clutching a canvas tote to her chest like it was a shield. She looked about 28, with soft brown hair that clung damply to her cheeks and gentle features twisted by distress. Her hazel eyes darted everywhere at once, wide and frightened. Her posture was defensive, shoulders drawn inward, spine curved, weight shifting as if she wanted to run, but didn't know which direction was safest. Behind her, half hidden under the awning, stood a tall man in a police jacket. At first glance, he looked like an officer helping a distressed citizen. But Ethan saw the truth immediately. It was in the tension of the man's jaw, the clench of his fists, the too close proximity that violated personal space. The man, blonde hair cropped short, about 6'1", with pale skin and a sharp face, leaned in with an expression that was wrong, too intimate, too controlling, too angry. Ethan slowed his stride, pretending to check his phone, while his eyes tracked the pair with clinical precision. Ranger gave a low rumble, almost soundless, but Ethan felt it through the leash. "I see it," he murmured. The woman raised her hands in a silent plea, her lips forming the words, "Please stop," words the man ignored. He stepped closer. She stepped back. The argument wasn't loud, but Ethan had learned long ago that the most dangerous conflicts were often the quiet ones. A man shouting could be de-escalated. A man whispering in rage. Those were the ones who killed. Ethan moved closer, slipping through bystanders, scanning micro-expressions, body language, options. He didn't intervene immediately. A SEAL didn't rush into a situation blind. He assessed. The man's stance, his build, his hands, no weapons visible. The woman's fear, real, escalating. The man's eyes, dark and furious, pupils narrowed, mouth tight. Ethan wasn't sure whether he recognized Ethan as a threat yet, but it wouldn't take long. As Ethan drew within earshot, he finally caught the man's muttered words. "You think you can hide from me, Lily? You think a restraining order means anything?" Lily Harper. Ethan processed the name quickly. She looked too fragile for the aggression directed at her. Too kind, too scared. "Derek, please," she whispered. "You're hurting my arm. I'll do worse if you don't listen." That was enough. Ethan's mind switched from observation to operation. He stepped forward with a calm, neutral voice that commanded attention. "Is everything all right here?" The blond man snapped his head toward Ethan, eyes narrowing instantly. There it was, hostility, territorial aggression. A man used to control and hating anyone who challenged it. "Back off," he spat. "This doesn't concern you." Ethan's expression remained unreadable. "It looked like she needed help." "She doesn't," Derek hissed. "Lily, tell him." Lily swallowed hard, shaking her head almost imperceptibly. Ethan saw it. Ranger saw it. Derek didn't. Derek grabbed Lily's wrist to yank her closer, but the movement was too forceful, too fast. Ranger reacted instantly, growling with a deep guttural warning, body lowering, teeth flashing in the dim light. Derek jolted backward at the sound. "Call off your damn dog!" "Let go of her," Ethan said, voice low but edged with steel. Derek hesitated. Ethan stepped closer, posture relaxed but intimidating, hands visible but ready. "You're making a scene," Ethan continued, voice calm enough to be dangerous. "Let go of her. Walk away." "Do you know who I am?" Derek snapped. "Officer Derek Shaw, Portland PD. You want to get arrested?" Ethan's expression didn't change. "You want to try?" For a moment, rain filled the silence between them, soft but relentless. Derek looked between Ethan's unblinking eyes and Ranger's exposed canines. It wasn't fear that made him release Lily. It was calculation. He wasn't willing to fight a trained dog and a man whose presence screamed military. Derek stepped back, pointing a shaking finger at Lily. "This isn't over," he growled. "You can't hide behind random heroes forever." He turned sharply and disappeared into the rain-soaked crowd, leaving behind tension thick as fog. Lily collapsed against the wall behind her, shaking. Ethan took a slow step back, giving her space. Ranger approached her gently, sniffing her hands, tail lowering in sympathy. "You okay?" Ethan asked softly. Lily nodded, though her entire body trembled. I think so." Her voice was fragile, cracked from fear. "Thank you. I didn't know what he would do." "You don't have to explain," Ethan said, but she did anyway. "He wasn't always like this," she whispered, "but power changes people. He had everyone fooled at the precinct. And when I tried to leave..." Her voice broke. Ranger nudged her knee gently. She managed a small, wet laugh. "Your dog is kinder than most people." "He knows when someone's scared," Ethan said, "and when someone needs help." Lily wiped rain and tears from her cheek. "Why did you help me?" "Because you needed it," Ethan replied simply, "and because he shouldn't be anywhere near you again." She looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief, like kindness had become a foreign language she barely remembered. "My name is Lily Harper," she whispered. "Ethan," he nodded. "Ethan Cole, and this is Ranger." Lily crouched slightly to meet Ranger's gaze. "Thank you, Ranger." The dog huffed as if acknowledging her. Ethan checked the direction Derek had gone, eyes narrowing, mind analyzing potential retaliation. "He won't walk away," Ethan murmured. "Men like him don't stop until someone stops them." Lily shivered again. "I know." Ethan didn't touch her. He wasn't the type, but he offered his presence like a shield. And in that rain-soaked moment, with the city buzzing unaware around them, Something shifted. A beginning. A warning. A line drawn. "Come on," Ethan said quietly. "Let's get you somewhere safe." Lily nodded, and together they walked into the rain. Ethan alert, Ranger vigilant, Lily fragile but breathing again. And somewhere behind them, Derek Shaw watched from the shadows, seething, already planning his next move. The rain softened into a cold mist by the time Ethan and Lily reached the quiet cafe, tucked between a bookstore and an old tailor shop. Warm yellow lights glowed behind fogged windows, casting a welcoming contrast against the gray world outside. Ethan chose this place intentionally, a calm, hidden corner of the city where eyes didn't pry and danger had a harder time following. Lily stepped inside first, clutching her tote bag tightly to her chest. The warmth hit her like a wave, but instead of comfort, her shoulders tensed, as if even gentle heat felt undeserved. Her soaked brown hair clung to her cheeks, and her hazel eyes flicked from table to table, scanning for threats she wasn't conditioned to articulate. Ethan recognized the behavior: hypervigilance, learned fear, the kind that didn't go away with one rescue. The cafe was mostly empty, save for an elderly man reading a newspaper in the corner and a young barista wiping the counter. The barista, Mariah, was in her early 20s, short and round-faced, with freckles scattered across her pale skin. Her curled ginger hair was tied in a messy bun, and her green eyes carried a warmth that put people at ease. She looked up, smiled, and greeted them with a cheerful tone that didn't quite match the tension hanging over the pair. "Rough weather out there," she said. Ethan nodded. "2 coffees, 1 black, 1... He looked to Lily. She hesitated before answering. "Chamomile tea, please." Her voice was soft, strained. Mariah didn't pry. She simply nodded and prepared the drinks, while Ethan guided Lily toward a booth in the back, where the dim lighting offered privacy. Ranger lay down beside the booth, positioning himself so he faced the door. His ears remained alert, like satellites rotating to pick up every sound. To anyone else, Ranger looked like a well-trained dog, but Ethan could read the tension in the Malinois' shoulders, the slight stiffness in his posture. Ranger was working. Lily sat, hands visibly trembling as she wrapped them around the warm cup Mariah delivered a moment later. Ethan thanked the barista with a small nod, a gesture of respect soldiers reserved for people who didn't ask unnecessary questions. For several seconds, neither spoke. Ethan watched Lily carefully, reading her breathing, the tremor in her fingertip, the way she flinched whenever someone opened the door. Her trauma wasn't fresh, but it was active, and it had a name: Derek Shaw. Ethan waited until Lily took her first sip of tea before asking, "How long has he been doing this?" Her eyes lowered. "Too long." She inhaled shakily, gathering the pieces of herself as if they were slippery and hard to hold on to. "Derek wasn't always violent, at least not physically. He was charming at first, confident. Everyone at the hospital said I was lucky. A police officer, clean-cut, polite, ambitious." She swallowed hard, fingers tightening around the cup. "But after our first year together, things changed. He became controlling. Everything I did was wrong. Every friend I had was dangerous. And whenever I questioned anything, he would lose control." Ethan leaned forward, voice low but steady. "He hit you." Lily nodded slowly, and pushed, and grabbed, and screamed. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. But the worst part wasn't the violence. It was that every time I tried to tell someone, nothing happened. Her lips quivered. "I reported him, twice. Internal Affairs said there wasn't enough evidence. His friends covered for him. They called me emotional, unstable, said I was exaggerating." Her voice broke. "He laughed when the case was dismissed." Ethan clenched his jaw, a quiet storm gathering behind his eyes. He had seen this pattern before, not overseas, but in broken households, in cities where abusers hid behind systems meant to protect the innocent. "He told me," Lily whispered, "that no matter where I ran, he could always find me, because he had a badge, and I had nothing." Ethan's expression didn't change much, but the energy around him shifted. His steel-gray eyes darkened, and Ranger lifted his head, as if sensing the change in his handler. Ethan kept his voice controlled. "You have something now." Lily's gaze flicked up. "What?" "Me." She almost laughed, but it wasn't humor. It was disbelief. "You don't even know me." "I don't need to." Ethan took a slow sip of his coffee. "I saw enough." Ranger huffed in agreement. Lily wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. "He's not going to stop, Ethan. Today was just a warning." "I know," Ethan said, "which is why I'm not letting you walk home alone." Lily looked conflicted. She was used to surviving alone, used to hiding and apologizing for taking up space. Being protected, worse, being defended, felt foreign. "I don't want to drag you into this," she whispered. "It's not your fight." Ethan's voice softened. "It became mine the moment he touched you." She lowered her gaze again, and a fragile silence fell over them. The rain tapped gently against the window, a rhythmic sound that might have been soothing if not for the tension twisting in Lily's stomach. Ethan didn't pressure her to speak again. He simply watched the door, monitoring the street outside, scanning faces through the fog glass. That was when Ranger's head snapped up. A low, warning growl vibrated through his chest. Ethan's attention sharpened instantly. "What is it?" Lily whispered, fear returning like a tide. Ranger moved to the edge of the booth, muscles coiled, eyes locked on the front door. A man walked past the cafe window, tall, bulky, wearing a dark hoodie despite the rain. His face was partially obscured, but the way he lingered, slowing down to peer inside, was too deliberate to be casual. Ethan tensed. Ranger's growl deepened. "Stay here," Ethan said as he rose. "Ethan, I'll be right back." He moved toward the door with silent, controlled steps. Ranger followed close, but Ethan signaled him to wait inside. The man outside pretended to check his phone as Ethan stepped onto the sidewalk. Rain misted the space between them. "You lost?" Ethan asked calmly. The man flinched, not from the words but from the tone. Ethan's voice carried the dangerous confidence of someone who had ended fights in streets far worse than Portland. The stranger's eyes darted around. "No problem," he muttered, backing off. "Just waiting for someone." "Not here, you're not." Ethan stepped closer, invading the man's space with calculated precision. "Leave!" The stranger hesitated, then turned and walked briskly across the street, disappearing into the wet haze. Ethan watched him until he was gone. When he stepped back inside, Lily's face was pale. "Ethan," she whispered, "that wasn't just some random guy." "I know." He slid back into the booth. Ranger knew too. Lily's breathing grew shallow. "Derek. He's been sending people. To the hospital. To my apartment. Anywhere I might go." Ranger pressed his head against Lily's leg, grounding her. Ethan spoke softly but firmly. "Then, you're not going back there." "I don't have anywhere else," she whispered. "You do now." Lily's eyes widened. "Ethan, I can't just—" "I'm not asking you to move in," he said calmly. "I'm asking you to stay alive." She let out a shuddering breath. She wasn't used to people choosing to help her without expecting something in return. Not used to safety offered as a gift instead of a trap. Mariah approached hesitantly with a refill pot. "Everything okay?" Ethan gave a polite nod. "Yes. Thanks." The barista lingered a moment, sensing the tension but respecting boundaries. Her presence brought a brief human warmth to the table. Lily took another sip of tea, trying to steady herself. Ethan watched her, assessing her breathing, posture, eye movements, tiny indicators of trauma. Lily stared into her cup. "He has access to everything. My address, my work schedule, my phone records. He even checked the hospital's employee database once to see if I'd been talking to anyone." "He can't track you tonight," Ethan said. "I shut your phone off before we left." Lily blinked. "You did?" "He's misusing the system. I've seen men like him overseas, abusing power because they know no one will stop them." Ethan's jaw tightened again. "But he's not dealing with a victim anymore. He's dealing with a problem." Lily stared at him. Something in her expression shifted. Not hope exactly, but the faint echo of it. "Why do you care so much?" she whispered. Ethan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at Ranger, who lifted his head and stared back with sharp amber eyes. "Because I know what it looks like when someone's being hunted," Ethan said finally. "And I don't leave people behind." Lily inhaled sharply, overwhelmed by emotion she didn't know how to process. Outside, the rain grew heavier. Inside, Ranger suddenly tensed again, ears pricking, body rigid. Ethan saw it instantly. "Someone's near," he said. Where? Lily whispered. Ranger turned his head toward the back alley exit. Ethan's muscles coiled. He stood, motioning Lily to stay low. Ranger, stay. But Ranger didn't stay. He moved to the back of the cafe, nose twitching, body on alert. Ethan followed. When he reached the door, he cracked it open. The alley was empty, but wet footprints led toward the dumpsters, fresh. Ethan's mind went razor sharp. He's probing, Ethan said quietly. Lily clutched her tote. He found me again. Ethan closed the door and locked it. He's not getting close to you, Ethan said firmly. Not tonight. Not ever again if I can help it. Lily looked like she was about to cry, but no tears came, only exhaustion. Ethan walked back to the booth, placed a 20 on the table, and reached for his jacket. Come on, he said gently. We're leaving. Where? Lily whispered. Somewhere he can't follow you. As they stepped outside, Ranger pressed against Lily's leg, guiding her like a shadow made of muscle and loyalty. Ethan scanned every rooftop, every passing car, every shadow that moved wrong. Derek Shaw had miscalculated. He thought he scared Lily. He didn't realize he had woken something far more dangerous. Ethan wasn't just protecting her, he was preparing for war. The storm arrived without warning that night, rolling over Portland like a beast awakening from anger rather than sleep. Thunder cracked across the sky in jagged lines of white, and rain poured hard enough against rooftops that it blurred the edges of buildings and turned the streets into flowing rivers. Most of the city retreated into the warmth of home, drawing curtains, locking doors, and waiting for the weather to pass. But for Lily Harper, storms were never just storms anymore. They were omens, warnings, triggers. Ethan had walked her to her small apartment earlier in the evening, escorting her inside to make sure everything was secure. He inspected the locks, checked the windows twice, and positioned Ranger near the door while he spoke with Lily in the living room. Her apartment was modest, a small couch, a thrift store bookshelf, a kitchen counter that doubled as dining space. But the space carried the soft warmth of someone who tried to make a life despite fear. A knitted blanket draped over the couch. A few watercolor paintings she made in her free time hung on the wall. A potted plant struggling for sunlight sat on the windowsill. Ethan could see her in all of it, gentle, hopeful, trying. I won't stay long, Ethan had said then. Ranger will alert you if anything's wrong. I'll be outside in the truck. Lily shook her head. You really don't have to. I do, he interrupted gently. Because he's not done, and I'm not letting you face him alone. Lily lowered her gaze, the same mix of gratitude and lingering disbelief settling in her chest. Ethan, thank you for everything. He didn't respond, but his eyes softened, just a fraction, just enough to show the part of him that still knew how to care. And then he left, Ranger staying behind by the door like a sentinel. Hours passed, the storm worsened. Lily tried to sleep but kept jolting awake at every crack of thunder. Her heart raced at every shadow shifting outside her window. Ranger remained still but alert, ears perked, golden eyes trained toward the entrance. Lily whispered to him once, "You feel it too, don't you?" Ranger blinked slowly. He did. Downstairs, in Ethan's parked truck, Ethan sat behind the wheel, watching raindrops race down the windshield, listening to the storm swallow the night. He wasn't relaxed. He never was. His mind replayed the earlier encounter outside the cafe. Derek's man lurking in the alley, the footprints, the undeniable proof that Lily's ex had escalated his hunt. Ethan's instincts had been screaming since the moment he saw Lily flinch at Derek's voice. She wasn't just being followed, she was being watched, hunted. And Ethan had seen that pattern too many times overseas to ignore it at home. When his phone buzzed suddenly, he nearly reached for his sidearm, a reaction that said everything about the life he had lived. The screen lit up with a message. No number, just a blocked caller ID. 3 words, "You can't protect her." Ethan's jaw clenched, the storm thundered overhead. And that instinct, that deep, primal seal instinct, told him he needed to go back upstairs. Now. He pushed open the truck door and stepped into the downpour. Meanwhile, on the apartment's 3rd floor, Lily stood from the couch with a sudden unease growing in her stomach. Ranger lifted his head sharply. His ears pricked, his shoulders stiffened, and then he growled. Low, dangerous, vibrating through the small room. "Ranger!" Lily whispered. He moved toward the door, barking once, sharp, urgent. That was the warning Ethan had taught him. Not for mailmen, not for neighbors. That bark meant one thing: danger is here. A second later, boom! A violent crash slammed against Lily's front door. She screamed and stumbled backward. Ranger lunged at the door with snarling ferocity, his claws scraping the floor as he braced himself between Lily and the threat outside. Voices followed, rough, low, full of intent. "Kick it again! Break it in!" Lily's heart pounded so fast she couldn't breathe. She backed toward the kitchen, grabbing the trembling handle of a drawer, searching for anything: a knife, a tool, something to defend herself with. But her hands were shaking so hard she could barely open it. Ranger barked again, louder, more aggressive. The door groaned under another hit, wood splintering. And then Ethan's voice thundered from the hallway. "Hey!" 3 forms stood outside. 2 men in dark hooded jackets and one with a shaved head and a scar slicing from his eye to his jaw. This one had a pipe wrench in one hand and a sick smile on his lips. Ethan recognized that smile instantly. The smile of someone who had done this before and liked it. "Back away from the door," Ethan barked. The scarred man grinned. "Or what? You gonna arrest me?" "No," Ethan said, stepping forward, muscles coiling. "I'm going to put you down." The first man lunged. Ethan reacted with the precision of years of combat training. He grabbed the wrist, twisted it sharply, and dislocated the joint in one practiced motion. The man screamed. Ethan thrust an elbow into his temple, and the attacker dropped like a stone. The second man pulled a knife, rusty, jagged, more intimidation than weapon, but he charged anyway. Ethan sidestepped, grabbed the man's jacket, and slammed him into the hallway wall hard enough to rattle the lights. The man crumpled. Only the scarred one remained. He swung the pipe wrench. Ethan ducked, grabbed the attacker's shirt, and slammed his knee upward into the man's ribs so hard the crack echoed down the hallway. The man wheezed and collapsed to the floor. Ethan didn't wait. He kicked the wrench away and sprinted to Lily's apartment. "Lily, it's me!" She unlocked the door with trembling fingers. When Ethan burst in, she fell into him, sobbing. "They were going to break in, Ethan." "I know," he said, checking her quickly for injuries. "We're getting out." But Ranger wasn't looking at them. He was looking out the window. His fur was raised, his teeth bared. Ethan moved beside him and froze. Below, on the street, in the rain and shadows, Derek Shaw stood next to Lily's apartment building, staring up at her window. His police jacket soaked through, his blonde hair plastered to his forehead, his eyes wild, and in his hand, a gas can. Ethan went cold. "Lily," he said softly, "get back." Just as he said it, Derek struck a match. A small orange flame flickered, then he dropped it. A roar of fire lit up the bottom floor as flames raced across the soaked wood like a hungry beast. The storm couldn't stop it. The gasoline burned too hot, too fast. Smoke surged upward almost immediately. Lily screamed. Ranger barked with ferocity. "He's burning the building," Ethan growled. "We need to move, now." He grabbed Lily's arm. "Stay low. Cover your mouth. Follow me." Smoke began to flood the hallway, thick and toxic. Ethan crouched low, moving with practiced efficiency. Ranger ran ahead, barking in short bursts, signaling safe paths. Lily coughed violently, tears burning her eyes. Ethan wrapped an arm around her shoulders, shielding her as they navigated the growing inferno. The hallway lights flickered. A section of ceiling collapsed behind them. The fire was spreading faster than any normal blaze. Derek hadn't just wanted to trap her, he wanted to erase her. "Keep moving," Ethan shouted. They reached the stairwell, but the lower stairs were consumed in fire. The heat was unbearable. Lily's breaths turned frantic. "Wah, we're trapped!" "Ranger," Ethan called. The Malinois barked, then darted through a side corridor. Ethan followed. Ranger found a maintenance room, a window, narrow but possible. Ethan smashed it with his elbow and shoved it open. Rain poured in, the storm welcoming them. "Lily, go," he said. She shook her head, terrified. It's too high." "I'll catch you." She hesitated only a second before climbing through. She leapt. Ethan caught her waist, guiding her to the sloped roof below. Ranger jumped on his own, landing beside them with perfect balance. Ethan landed last, rolling to absorb the force. Flames blasted from the window behind them. They scrambled down the metal fire escape, slipping in the rain. When they reached the bottom, Lily collapsed beside Ranger, coughing, trembling. Ethan scanned the street. Derek was gone. Sirens wailed in the distance, but too late. Fire trucks rounded the corner, spraying the inferno. But Derek Shaw had vanished into the night. Just like a ghost. Just like a predator who knew he still had time. And Ethan knew the truth. This wasn't over. It had only begun. The first light of dawn had not yet broken through the clouds, but the world felt strangely awake, tense, cold, and humming with the kind of electricity that comes when a storm is shifting into something far more dangerous than rain. The ruins of Lily's burnt apartment still smoldered hours after the fire crews left. Blackened wood, collapsed ceiling beams, charred remains of the life she had tried to build. Ethan stood in the middle of the ashes, boots planted firmly, eyes narrowed. Smoke still curled around his legs like ghosts refusing to leave. Ranger paced at his side, sniffing the rubble with low, uneasy whines. Lily watched from Ethan's truck nearby, wrapped in one of Ethan's brown military jackets. It dwarfed her. She was small, fragile-looking, with her auburn-brown hair tousled from the night before, her skin pale under the early morning gray. Her hazel eyes remained locked on the wreckage, as if part of her soul had been burned inside it. Ethan walked back to the truck and climbed in. The exhaustion pulled at his shoulders, but his eyes remained sharp, controlled, focused. "You don't have anything left here," he said, voice low. "But you still have a chance, and I'm going to take it." Lily looked down at her trembling hands. "Ethan, he won't stop. He burned my home. He tried to kill me. I know," Ethan answered quietly, "which is why I'm calling someone who doesn't scare easily." He picked up his phone and dialed a number from memory, one he hadn't used in years. The line clicked. A rough, gravel-thick voice answered. "Blake, that you?" Ethan exhaled softly. "Yeah, it's me." Damn, when a ghost calls, it's either for a drink or for war. "It's war," Ethan said. "I need your help, Mason." Mason Drake was a former SEAL teammate, tall, broad-shouldered, early 40s, with a beard threaded in gray. His hair was close-cropped, military style, and small scars marked his knuckles and left cheek. His presence had always been commanding without effort, but what truly defined him was his mind, a strategic thinker with the quiet ruthlessness needed to do the right thing in impossible situations. Ethan explained everything: Lily, Derek, the attacks, the fire, the badge being used as armor for cruelty. Mason didn't interrupt. When Ethan finished, his old teammate's voice hardened. "Send me his name, give me 2 hours. I'll dig him out of whatever darkness he's hiding behind." Mason wasn't exaggerating. 2 hours later, Ethan and Lily waited inside a safe motel outside Portland. The dim lighting flickered with each gust of wind against the building. Lily sat on the edge of the bed, her knees drawn together, fingers tangled nervously. Ranger lay beside her, resting his chin gently against her knee, grounding her breaths. Ethan paced. It was the quiet pacing of a soldier preparing for something inevitable, deliberate, calculated, heavy with restrained fury. When his phone buzzed, he caught it instantly. Mason's voice came through. "Blake, you're going to want to sit for this." Ethan didn't. "Give it to me." Papers shuffled on Mason's end. Derek Shaw, 35, Portland PD for 8 years. Commendations, awards, all too clean. Lily swallowed hard. Mason continued. "I dug deeper, way deeper. Blake, he's been hurting women for a long time. Your girl isn't the first." Lily closed her eyes, hands trembling. Ethan's fist tightened. Mason went on, each word colder. 2 ex-girlfriends, both filed reports, both mysteriously recanted within 48 hours. One had a broken collarbone, the other had head injuries. Internal affairs buried both cases. Lily's breath hitched. "Oh, God," Mason added, voice dropping even lower. "Last year, a college student accused him of assault." She also withdrew the statement, probably because someone threatened her. Ethan's jaw worked in silent rage. "There's more," Mason said. "I pulled archived security footage from a hospital parking garage. It shows him pinning a woman against her car, grabbing her hair. She never filed a report. I'd bet money he scared her into silence." Ethan glanced at Lily, her chest rising in harsh, uneven breaths. Mason inhaled sharply. And get this. Your guy altered police reports. I found original drafts saved in the system. He changed witness statements, deleted complaints, added false remarks to make Lily look mentally unstable. Lily's lips parted in shock. He really did that? Ethan nodded grimly. Yeah, he did. The guy's a monster, Mason muttered. And Portland PD protected him because he was one of their own. But you know what? A slow grin touched his voice. We don't play by their rules. Ethan's eyes darkened. What do you have for evidence? Enough to drown him. Video files, audio clips, original reports, copies of altered statements, and, get this, a witness who says Derek threatened her if she didn't keep quiet. Who? A woman named Sandra Polanski, mid-30s, school counselor. I'll text you her info. Another piece. Another voice Derek had tried to silence. Ethan looked at Lily. She clutched Ranger's fur like it was the only solid thing left in her world. Ethan returned to the phone. Good work, Mason. I'm not done, Mason said. I pulled his financials. He paid 2 guys off the record last night. Ethan stiffened. The ones who broke into Lily's apartment. Exactly. Mason's tone sharpened. Blake, this isn't a domestic case anymore. This is federal territory, and I know someone who will want in. Who? An FBI investigator. Call him Agent Collins. Ethan was silent for a moment. Collins was a name he remembered. A tall, lean man in his late 30s with dark skin, close-shaved hair, sharp features, and a suit that always looked pressed even in chaos. Collins had the kind of eyes that studied everything. Eyes of someone who knew the difference between guilt, fear, and truth. Mason said, Collins hates dirty cops. He'll help. Within an hour, Agent Marcus Collins arrived at the motel. He stood in the doorway wearing a dark gray trench coat, holding a tablet under his arm. Rain still clung to his shoulders. His expression was calm but unreadable as he scanned the room, taking in Ethan, Lily, the burned smell on their clothes, and Ranger who watched him like a hawk. Lily Harper? Collins asked gently. Lily nodded. Collins approached slowly, his movements deliberate, non-threatening. I read your files. Everything Derek hid, everything he altered. I want you to know something before we continue. Lily's breath trembled. What? Nothing that happened to you is your fault, he said. And none of this is over, not until we put him away. Lily wiped her cheek. Ethan folded his arms, studying Collins. We have evidence, Ethan said. Mason sent it all. Collins nodded. I saw it. And now we need him caught in the act. Tonight, if possible. Why tonight? Lily asked shakily. Collins sighed. Because Shaw knows he failed last night, and men like him, they escalate when they lose control. Lily's heart seemed to stop. Ethan spoke before fear consumed her. Then we end this tonight. The plan took hours to form, assembled piece by piece between Ethan's tactical mind, Collins' authority, and Ranger's nose trained to track even in chaos. They knew Derek would go back to the one place he felt safe, somewhere dark, isolated, and familiar. Mason had tracked Derek's old patrol routes. One place kept coming up, the abandoned docks by the river, a perfect hunting ground for a desperate man, a perfect cage for an ambush. The warehouse district was deserted by the time Ethan, Collins, Lily, and Ranger arrived. The night was heavy with mist, fog crawling across the ground like low-lying ghosts. Broken lamps flickered weakly over rusted metal crates and rotting wooden pallets. The river slapped against the docks in rhythmic, eerie beats. Ranger walked ahead, nose to the ground, tail stiff. Ethan held Lily close behind him, never more than an arm's reach away. Collins moved quietly, gun holstered at his side, scanning every shadow. When Ranger stopped suddenly, Ethan knew. Derek was here. A voice echoed from the darkness, raw, unhinged, furious. Lily. She froze. Derek stepped out from behind an old shipping container, soaked from the mist, hair plastered to his forehead, eyes bloodshot with obsession and panic. He pointed a gun directly at them. It could have been so easy, he hissed. You could have stayed. You could have loved me, but you chose him. I didn't choose anyone, Lily cried. Derek's hand twitched. You're mine. Collins lifted a hand carefully. Derek Shaw, drop the weapon. This ends now. Shut up! Derek screamed. "You don't get to talk. You're just another outsider trying to ruin me." Ethan stepped forward, muscles tight as wire. "You ruined yourself." Derek swung the gun toward Ethan. "You stay back. You think you're a hero? Think you can take something that belongs to me?" Ethan didn't blink. "She doesn't belong to you." Derek's rage boiled over. "She belongs to me." He lifted the gun. A blur of tan and muscle exploded from Ethan's side. "Ranger." He launched forward with a snarl, slamming into Derek's arm just as the gun fired. The bullet grazed Ethan's shoulder, tearing through his jacket, but he didn't stop. He surged forward, tackling Derek to the ground. The weapon skittered across the wet dock. Ranger wrestled for control, holding Derek's arm in a crushing bite. Derek screamed in pain. Ethan straddled him, pinning him with his full weight, hardened muscles built from years of war. Steam and fog swirled around them as Ethan drew back his fist, his voice low and lethal. "This is for Lily." The punch landed with devastating precision, enough force to break Derek's resistance without ending his life. Derek collapsed, unconscious. Collins rushed in, slapping cuffs onto Derek's wrists. "Derek Shaw," Collins declared, "you are under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy, arson, stalking, and multiple counts of assault." Lily stood trembling, covering her mouth. Ranger trotted to her, nuzzling her hip. She dropped to her knees and embraced him, sobbing into his fur. Ethan looked at her, really looked. Relief washed through him like a storm passing. For the first time in days, he allowed himself to breathe. Derek Shaw was done, and Lily Harper was finally free. The late afternoon sun draped the coastal town in a soft amber haze, the kind of light that made the world seem gentler than it truly was. For the first time in weeks, Ethan Blake felt the absence of imminent danger. No sirens, no gunshots echoing in back alleys, no scent of gasoline, blood, or burning wood. Only the rhythmic crash of the Pacific Ocean, steady as a heartbeat, rolling toward the shore. At 34, Ethan carried the kind of presence that still made strangers instinctively give him space. He was tall, 6'2", with the hard-carved build of a man who had learned to survive battles most civilians would never dream of. His dark brown hair was trimmed short in military style, though longer now than deployment regulations allowed. A sharp jaw framed by quietly rugged stubble gave him the look of someone who had lived too fast, too intensely, but had somehow learned to stand still without falling apart. His eyes, a muted steel gray, scanned the beach not for threats, but for something he rarely allowed himself to consider: peace. Ranger trotted beside him, the 4-year-old Belgian Malinois, as alert and disciplined as any soldier, yet unusually relaxed today. His fur, rich black fading into tan, glistened faintly under the sun. Ranger was trained to detect explosives, track enemies in the dead of night, breach doors, and disarm armed assailants. But at this moment, he was doing none of those things. His tail wagged lazily, a low, steady rhythm against the shifting sand. The coastal town of Alder's Cove was small, quiet, the kind of place people came to leave broken lives behind. A string of pastel storefronts lined the curved road behind the beach. A bakery, a thrift shop, a seashell boutique, and a cafe whose chalkboard sign read, "Warm drinks for cold hearts." It was a place that didn't ask questions, and that was exactly what Lily Harper needed. He saw her before she saw him. Lily stood barefoot in the sand near the water's edge, her soft brown hair pulled into a loose knot at the nape of her neck. She wore a pale linen dress that danced around her legs in the wind. A month had changed her. The bruises had faded from her face. Her posture, once curled in on itself, was open now, shoulders no longer hunched in fear. Lily Harper was 28, slim and willow-like, with gentle features and expressive hazel eyes. She had always been kind, but trauma had dimmed her light. Now, in the golden haze of a settling day, that light flickered back to life. Ethan paused, watching her quietly. There was something in his chest, something warm and heavy, that only tightened the longer he looked. Ranger barked once, sharp and happy, breaking the spell. Lily turned, and when she did, the smile that bloomed on her face was unlike any Ethan had seen from her before. Unguarded, hopeful, real. "Ethan!" she breathed, moving toward him. "You came." He nodded once, a small smile tugging at the edge of his mouth. "Told you I would." Lily knelt to greet Ranger first, laughing when the Malinois pressed his head against her stomach. "I missed you too," she whispered to the dog, scratching behind his ears. Ranger huffed, his version of a satisfied sigh. Ethan watched them for a moment, hands tucked into his jacket pockets, uncharacteristically unsure of how to stand. Lily rose to her feet and stepped closer. There was hesitance in her eyes, not fear but emotion too large for words. "You look lighter," she said softly. Ethan blinked. No one had said that to him in years. "You look stronger." Lily's gaze dipped, cheeks warming. "I'm trying." They walked along the shore, sand shifting beneath their shoes. Neither spoke at first. The silence between them wasn't heavy. It was a bridge, built slowly, step by step. Ethan had never been good with words. His entire life had been shaped by orders, missions, the kind of discipline that turned emotions into liabilities. But Lily, she made him want to learn a new kind of language. "How's the new place?" he asked finally. Lily glanced back toward the small cottage on the dunes, white walls, blue shutters, a tiny porch with a single chair, and a potted lavender plant. "Quiet," she answered. "Safe." She paused. "And mine?" Ethan nodded, absorbing the weight in her voice. Lily had never owned her life before. Not truly, not while Derek Shaw stalked every step she took. "That's good," Ethan said quietly. "That's exactly what you deserve." She looked at him then, eyes glimmering with something fragile yet fierce. "I wouldn't have made it here without you." Ethan exhaled slowly. He didn't want gratitude, not from her. "You made it out because you fought for yourself," he said. "I just cleared the path." Lily shook her head. "You saved my life, more than once." Her voice wavered. "I think that counts for something." Ethan's jaw tightened, his reflex whenever emotions pressed too close. He looked toward the horizon, where the lowering sun melted into the sea. "Seals don't get to keep much," he said. "Not time, not promises. We're always being called somewhere else." Lily didn't answer. Instead, she waited, patient, gentle, unassuming. Something in the way she listened coaxed him to continue. "I can't promise I'll be here when things get hard," Ethan said quietly. "But I can promise I'll hear you, every time, even if you whisper." Lily's breath caught, and then, with a slow movement, she reached into the tote bag slung over her shoulder and pulled something out. A canvas wrapped in brown paper. Ethan frowned. "What's that?" "Open it," she said. He peeled the tape back carefully. When the paper fell away, he froze. It was a painting. Her painting. Lily was a nurse by training, but her soul, soft and artistic, had always belonged to brushes and color. The canvas held a portrait of 3 figures at the coast, a tall man in a dark jacket, looking straight ahead, a powerful dog at his side, alert and watchful, and behind them, the ocean stretching wide. She'd painted Ethan and Ranger as guardians, shadows of courage standing before the sea. Ethan swallowed, his throat tight. "Lily, this is hope," she whispered. "You gave it back to me. I wanted you to have something that shows what you are." Ethan wasn't accustomed to receiving gifts. He wasn't accustomed to being seen. Not like this. He looked at Lily, truly looked, and found himself unsteady in a way no battlefield had ever managed. Ranger bumped his leg gently, sensing the shift in Ethan's breathing. Lily stepped closer. "Thank you," she said again, voice trembling. "For everything." Ethan cleared his throat, shifting his weight. "You don't owe me anything." "Maybe not," she murmured, "but I wanted to tell you anyway." For a few seconds they simply stood there, the wind tugging at their clothes, the sun painting their shadows long across the sand. Ethan reached out then, not thinking, just moving, and tucked a loose strand of hair behind Lily's ear. Her breath hitched, but she didn't pull away. Ethan's hand lingered for 1 heartbeat, 2, before he lowered it. The softness of the moment felt almost unreal, but life had taught Ethan that softness was fragile and beautiful and rare. Ranger barked suddenly, chasing a drifting piece of seaweed. Lily laughed, a sound full of life, and Ethan felt something settle inside him. Something right. In the end, stories like Ethan's and Lily's remind us of a simple truth. Miracles do not always arrive as blinding flashes of light. Sometimes they walk toward us quietly, in the form of courage, kindness, or a single person who refuses to look away. In our everyday lives, we may not face burning buildings or men with guns, but we all face storms, fear, loneliness, heartbreak, battles no one else can see. And somewhere in those storms, grace can still find us. Through a helping hand, a loyal companion, or a stranger who chooses to care. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs a reminder that hope is never truly lost. Don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel so more people can receive messages of courage, healing, and second chances. And tonight, I pray that God places a shield of protection around you and your loved ones, that He fills your home with peace, your spirit with strength, and your path with unexpected miracles. May He guide your steps through every storm and lead you toward a future brighter than anything behind you. If you believe in the power of hope, justice, and divine protection, write Amen in the comments below. God bless you. Stay safe, stay strong, and never stop believing in miracles.